where like
Yeah.
it's a lot of personal bias and you're not really being paid much.
But they're also a big tech company, so they're going to be
Foreign
full of
Love donated
leftists and simps
$5.
and all that shit.
TFM, what do
Well,
you
I mean,
think about the
subreddit
large
mobs.
influx Western men leaving America to find more submissive, cooperative and feminine wives abroad? The idea even attracted black men who call themselves passport brothers. I've traveled to Thailand 5 times this year myself. The women are much better. Will you eventually get your passport so you don't have to use Celestia anymore?
All
I
right.
mean,
First of
first the
all,
problem.
she's her name is Celestina. She's not a pony. Secondly, I got bad news for you. All women are like that. The women in Thailand and Southeast Asia and in Eastern Europe and South America, they're not better than Western women. The reason why they act better is because they live in cultures where there are consequences for being a woke feminist.
Where
Women are
men
as
keep their
good
pimp hand strong.
Women are as good or as bad as men allow them to be. If men in the West would find their pimp hand, women in the West would become, what you say, submissive, cooperative, and feminine. It could happen tomorrow.
I mean, we
It,
have them in the Amish communities, the Orthodox
yeah,
communities,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Mennonites.
So it's our fault. It's men's fault for allowing women to do this. So here's the problem with Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe or South America, wherever you go to find these cooperative, feminine, submissive women, is they're only that way because of the environment that they're in. They're not better. They're not more feminine. They're living in a society where they can't express their wokeness. And there's an example. There's a video clip. I put it up on MGTOW. It's called "Winner Takes All," and I have like the SpongeBob song, where it's like, what I'm talking about, the "Winner Take All" song, and the
Yeah, the
"Sweet
Sweet
Victory" song.
Victory.
Yeah. So here's the background of that story. I didn't make the video. It's actually a clip from a French news channel, and what happened was a woman went into a Muslim no-go zone, and the men are enforcing patriarchy in the middle of France. And this reporter is like complaining about it because they had a cafe that was only for men. No women were allowed in that cafe. And she was complaining, "Oh, this is a public place and it's against the law to discriminate." And all the men were just like giving her a look and rolling their eyes and just basically ignoring her because they don't give a fuck about her. And she found a woman to interview. And this is a Muslim woman living in a Muslim no-go zone, and she's talking to the reporter like, "This isn't fair. This isn't the old country. We're in Europe. I should have rights." And then the men came by and gave her like the Luigi death stare, and she immediately ended the interview and ran away. And so the takeaway is that this Muslim woman living in this Muslim no-go zone wants to be a feminist. She wants to be woke. She wants to be just as bitchy and cunty as every blue-haired fat land whale that you see walking around on any given day. But she can't because the men won't let her. So here's the takeaway. If you go to Thailand, if you go to wherever the fuck you go to find these submissive, cooperative, feminine wives, do not bring them back. You fucking stay there forever. You raise your little jungle family or something. Never, ever bring these women from Asia or wherever you find them back to the West, because all women are like that. She is not. I don't give a fuck. Oh, she was raised better and she has good traditional values. No. She's living in a culture that doesn't allow her to express her nature. That's the secret. So you can't just bring a woman from that environment into a Western environment that will actively. And you see this all the time. I fucking guarantee you. Talk to
Even
people.
Halsey had a good example of it, and it like that story in the Orthodox community where this guy
Well,
was basically not keeping his pimp hand strong, and his wife was just running over him all the time.
but that you could. This is one anecdotal example. I've heard numerous examples of guys who went to Asia, they married some girl, they brought her back to the West, and every time it's always the same story. I'm sure you've heard it too. Now that I'm about to say this, you'll never unhear it. these guys will be like, oh, I brought my sweetheart from Thailand back home, and oh, she fell into a bad crowd and they brainwashed her. And she became a bitchy, cunty feminist. But she was so sweet and innocent back in Asia. But then when I brought her back to California, her new friends brainwashed her. No,
And
she
now
wasn't
she's
brainwashed.
now
She
she's
just,
taken the kid and ruined my life.
Ericer
yeah,
donated $30.
she was always like that.
TFM, you're Goku. You've single-handedly taken down the cathedral and taken over the USA. How are you setting up the new government? What does TFM's Bill of Rights look like?
One point to add to the
Okay.
previous donor must be pretty new here if he thinks that you're gonna give up Celestine.
Oh yeah, that's not happening anyway.
Yeah, I don't understand these people that are they're like, oh, I can like whatever they have a doll or something, but they're like, oh, I can go use a prostitute, yay, or I'm gonna go
Yay,
overseas on a
prostitute.
prostitute trip. Like what? Like dolls are so much better than prostitutes, first of all, but second of all, why would you like even without that part? Like, let's say they weren't better, maybe it was like comparable or the same. Like, why would you go like even just one country over, but like across the world just for like a prostitute, just to like get your dick wet or have an orgasm like that? I just can't understand that. It just seems like very like retarded to me, to
Well,
say
it's
lightly.
it's actually less expensive because you get there and then the prostitutes are very cheap, so you can have like a big sex party every day because
Yeah,
the
but
prostitutes are.
isn't that like so destructive though to your just like your daily routine or your life? Like,
Well,
oh, I'm
yeah,
gonna go on a trip for a week or a month.
I know. Well, yeah, and it's not cheap. So imagine you work half the year to spend the other half the year going on sex tourism to fuck girls all over the world, and that's all. That's your whole life. Like that's what you're living for, is just going around fucking prostitutes in different countries. I don't consider that a very meaningful life personally, but you do you. And again, dolls aren't for everyone. If going to Thailand and fucking prostitutes is your thing, then if that's what you want to spend your money on, who am I to judge? Anyway, yeah. So is that it? I think we covered everything. But yeah, don't bring your foreign wives will get quote unquote brainwashed, and they'll turn into Western women and take your kids and divorce you, just like the Western women will. Because the spoiler is they weren't brainwashed; they were always like that. You removed the thing that was constraining them, which is the patriarchy in their home country. So if you
They're
want to
also
go
not
to the
gonna. So I was just gonna say, and they're also not gonna have any like mercy on you. Like they'll take full child support, full alimony, full anything they can get. They'll let you live in like a little tent or a little trailer, like not having internet, even barely being able to afford food, and be like perfectly happy, no guilt about it. And you're just gonna be like basically full of hate because this person just like ruined your life. And in the end, it's your fault because you took her back to America. Like even if, especially in these cases where it's like they lived in that country with them, raising their child for a few years, and then later, when they're a little older, took them back to America, like that like will surprise you even more, break your heart even more, make you even more resentful and hateful. And it also will be easier for her now. Like you'll think, oh, but we bonded over those years. Like no, from her perspective, now it's just the kid's grown, so they're easier to take care of, so it's easier to fuck you over now.
Yep. Yeah, just don't. All women are like that, my dude. All women are like that. There are no good women. There are women who live in countries or cultures where the men have their pimp hand. And there are women who don't live in those cultures where men don't have their pimp hand. And that's it. If you want good women, all you got to do is find your pimp hand, and the women are good. If you forget about your pimp hand, the women turn into shit. And that's all it is.
I think it might be hard for like these people to like believe it until they see it, because it's like they're just experiencing like, oh, but they're so nice and good and so much better than Western women. And it's not until like the mask comes off when they're in this country that they finally like experience it and realize that they're all like that. Like they have to like experience it before they like accept that, come to terms with that.
Yeah, there's a guy in MGTOW named I Am Serious, and he moved to not Cambodia. He moved to Indonesia, and he converted to Islam. He's Canadian. He converted to Islam, went to Indonesia, married an Indonesian woman, had a kid, and then basically like she just wanted his kid. And then she was going to, child support, take the kid, whatever. And he basically had to like he had to like smuggle his kid out of the country and run back to Canada with his kid. So yeah, it's a fucked up situation.
Eric Third donated $5. Karoy, good luck with your future endeavor. Will you still be hanging out in the monkey business chat?
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a longer comment. Thank you. And yes, I'll still be in like the Matrix server. Probably not as frequently, but I'll still be like around. So it's not like I'm just like dead and disappeared.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, let's go back to the previous comment because we didn't talk about it. All right. So let's say I'm Goku and I single-handedly, through my superpowers, destroy the government, and what would I do? Well, I don't want to be king or emperor or anything. So all I would do is I would be like, okay, here's what we need to do. If you have these values, you're going to create this society. And if you don't have those values, you're going to create this society. And we just need to create not necessarily parallel societies, but we're going to have to... this one-size-fits-all majority rule shit is retarded. Because most people don't have the value of freedom. So when you have universal suffrage and democracy, you're going to end up with basically parasites voting for free shit. And I hate people who basically presuppose utilitarianism as universal morality. Like, go fuck yourself. This idea that, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. No, they fucking don't. The needs of the many do not outweigh the needs of the few. It's not like, and I'll prove it. Look, I'll give you two examples. Number one, the whole trolley experiment. You have 10 Nobel Prize-winning doctors who are trying to cure cancer, and you have 1,000 single mothers. Who dies? The single mothers every fucking time. Fuck those people. But but we're talking like 10 doctors versus 1,000 single mothers. You'd really let 1,000 single mothers die every time. But according to utilitarianism, which is predicated on equality, because the only thing is it's basically, if you're a person, it's whatever benefits the most people is the morally right thing to do. So all you have to be is a person, and everyone's equal. The doctors aren't worth more than the single mothers. So since there's 1,000 single mothers and only 10 doctors, the doctors die because it's 1,000 versus 10 because they're all people. But that isn't how anything works, and I'll prove it personally. Imagine you're on the beach, and you see your dog drowning in the ocean, and then you see over here, there's some random stranger you don't even know also drowning in the ocean. Who do you save? Do you save the random stranger, or you save your dog? You save your dog every time. So that's just how we are. That's how human nature is. Utilitarianism is just predicated on equality. And I hate dipshits like Sam Harris who basically presuppose utilitarianism in order to prove morality is objective. It's not objective.
Yeah. Just a part of that analogy too, for what you're saying. Like with that example, like the dog is also your responsibility. It's like your dog, and it's like kind of your property. You're responsible for it. You're not responsible for this random dude's life or a random person's life, but you are responsible for your dog. Your dog is like relying on you, and you've taken that responsibility for the dog willingly. The other person is just random. You never took responsibility for them. They're just a random person.
Right. So I had going back to, what kind of government would I set up? If you believe in equality or you believe in stability, you're free to go and create your society however you want. I don't want
the door is that way.
Yeah, look, you're free to keep whatever resources are yours or whatever. I'm not going to expel you from the country, but the people who believe in freedom need a place to breathe. So I would just establish, basically, if you believe in freedom, but the thing is to be free is to be personally responsible. So there'll be no welfare. There'll be no gives me dats. There'll be no the government needs to do X, Y, or Z. No, you need to fix your shit. You know, like, there'll be tools and there'll be methods and ways to organize and collectively solve problems. But to just vote yourself other people's money, you can fuck all the way off.
MGTOW username donated